Welcome back. I hope everybody enjoyed the lunch and a chance to catch up with some old friends and meet some new ones. And we will go straight into our next session. And to get us started, I'd like to introduce Mr. Tom Lash, who's the Director of the National Security Organization at Amazon Web Services. And Tom's going to introduce our afternoon keynote speaker.
Thank you, John, and good afternoon, everyone. Great to be with you here this afternoon. Real honor for me and real privilege to be with you in person after a couple-year hiatus. First off, big thank you to INSA for doing what they do so well, bringing together industry and government and academia to have a very thoughtful conversation about a super important topic as we think about our big data needs and our data analytics and artificial intelligence and how we can keep the U.S. in front of the war for supremacy here. And this afternoon, it's my pleasure to introduce the Director of the Intelligence Advanced Research Projects Activity, Dr. Catherine Marsh. Now, Amazon Web Services has been helping our customers in the AI/ML space ever since really our advent in 2006. And prior to that, we had an awful lot of experience from the commercial sector, developing tools that you probably wish we hadn't developed, like the Amazon recommendation engine, that helps you get all the packages that show up in your neighborhood every day. But today we operate those AI/ML services at scale across all of our businesses to include our logistics and our delivery and cloud services functions. And I invite you to learn more about that. Feel free to reach out to me afterwards and we can learn a little bit more about how we integrate these services into our daily activity. So as the title of the conference implies, we have a lot of work ahead of us. This is real heavy lifting to get the data prepped and cleansed and prepared to take advantage of many of the amazing capabilities that are available in this room. So I certainly look forward to helping the intelligence community in that advancement. So without further ado, Dr. Catherine Marsh became Director of the Intelligence Advanced Research Projects Activity in November of 2019, where she is responsible for investing in high-risk, high-payoff research that has the potential to provide our nation with an overwhelming intelligence advantage. Prior to this assignment, Dr. Marsh was the chief scientist for the CIA's Directorate of Science and Technology from 2016 to 2019, where she was responsible for ensuring that leading-edge science and technology underlying current and future mission capabilities. She is the Director of National Intelligence Fellow and member of the DS&T's Distinguished Expert Cadre. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Catherine Marsh.
Hello, thank you, Tom, for that kind introduction, and good afternoon to everybody. So, on behalf of my amazing and innovative team at IARPA, I am honored to be here to share with you some of the great new ideas that we're developing to address big data challenges and maintain a competitive strategic advantage over our adversaries. We at IARPA do take advantage of using the cloud services that Tom was so gracious to talk about and find it to be an incredible advantage that we have for collaborating in the cloud and for our performers to collaborate in the cloud. That it has enabled new ways of doing things for the technology we're developing. I'd personally like to thank INSA not only for having me today, but also for the important work that you do, allowing the collaborative discussions like this to take place, and now more than ever, discovering and adopting innovative solutions that will help us maintain, no, indeed grow, a competitive strategic advantage over our adversaries, as this is key to our future. And that's exactly what we do at IARPA. We were created to invest in high-risk, high-payoff research that has the potential to provide our nation with an overwhelming intelligence advantage, right? We were stood up in the aftermath of 9/11 to anticipate unwarned surprise and to give the IC foresight. At that time, the intelligence community did not have what DARPA provided for DoD for so long, an organization that could explore disruptive, next-generation technology-based capabilities to give policymakers and military decision makers a decisive advantage over our adversaries. Without that, it leaves you blind, right? So IARPA was set up in the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, or ODNI, to support the IC in the same way that DARPA does that for DoD. We invest in that high-risk, high-payoff scientific and research programs that tackle some of those challenges, some of the most difficult challenges that we face today. We're positioned in ODNI to serve the entirety of the IC. We do not have one mission, right? We get to support all 18 agencies of the intelligence community, and so technologies that we develop may transport multiple agencies and allow them to use them. It also means that we're not focused in only one capability. So that's really important. It gives us the freedom to explore that wide variety of challenges facing the community writ large. In many cases, our research becomes the nexus for technology collaboration across agencies. Because on all of our programs, we have what's known as a government advisory panel, where we bring in those across the community who are helping us not only shaping the program, but from the get-go, looking at what we're doing and making sure that we're hitting the right targets and that we're tackling the right part of the problem. If we don't do that, what we'll end up with is solutions that go on the shelf. Okay, and at the beginning of IARPA, that is what happened. Okay, so we've learned from that, and we've modified that to make sure that we have that insight from the get-go. It doesn't mean that we will do what somebody tells us to do, because we do not have requirements-based capabilities. We identify what the challenge is, and we're looking for you in the private sector and academia to give us your innovative thoughts on that. So because of this, community focus, what you see in IARPA is an incredibly diverse portfolio that runs the gamut from quantum computing and neuroscience to cognitive psychology, sociology, power sources, of course, and antennas, as well as chemical and biological sensing. We're at the forefront of leveraging artificial intelligence and machine learning to develop remarkable capabilities in speech and facial recognition, as well as machine translation and information discovery. At IARPA, we recognize that technology innovation takes place everywhere across the globe. Couple this with the fact that the degree of complexity and the speed of change make the IC's problem set too much for any individual person or organization to address comprehensively, and you will conclude, as we have, that we need to partner and team effectively if we're going to be successful. The fact that the majority of IARPA's research is unclassified makes it possible for us to attract the best minds in the world to contribute to our mission. Moreover, as technology becomes ubiquitous and almost universally accessible, it becomes easier to deploy and even easier to use in operations, both our own and those of our adversaries. While offensive and defensive use of technology is not exactly new, the pace of that change and the diversity of options make it imperative that we adapt and evolve rapidly. With our deep understanding of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, IARPA is capable of developing, applying, deploying, and understanding the impacts and risk of technology anywhere on the globe. Therefore, we provide not only new technologies and capabilities, but also insight and understanding to the IC. My goal one day is not have to explain who we are and how we do business and how we're different from DARPA, but especially inside the Beltway, we're not that well known. We're working on it, and this exposure really helps us, so thank you again. It's good for us to be here because it broadens our pool of performers, and it allows us to tap into the minds of top-notch innovators in the world. And once you know about our work and what you can do, we'll see how important and whether you can contribute. I'd like to say that at IARPA, we have an unbroken record of success, but that's just not true. Many of you have seen the movie Apollo 13, which is one of my favorites, I must admit. You must remember that scene where Gene Kranz, Ed Harris is who he was playing, says he's trying to find a solution for how are they going to save the astronauts, right? And so at that point, he said, failure is not an option. But actually, that's not how technology works. That's not how it works here. And if you're taking a lot of risk, you are going to have failure. At IARPA, we know that if we never fail, we are not taking enough risk. And so we invest in those approaches that others are not even going to consider, right? Because if we don't look for disruptive, game-changing technologies, we can't change the future. We're not about solving yesterday's problem, we're about solving tomorrow's problem and filling the gaps and capabilities that people don't know that we have. It's critically important for us to do that. Indeed, in high-risk, high-payoff research, failure happens. Failure is vital for our work. You can't do high-risk scientific research without at some point failing. And for us, that's actually okay, as long as you learn from it. You have to learn from failures so you don't make them again and again and again. It makes us smarter, it makes what we deliver better, right? Because we have tested it. We have proven that it works beyond a shadow of a doubt. I am not delivering capability to a partner in the IC that I haven't independently done test and verification on. And so don't misunderstand me, nobody likes failure, but it's important to shape what our work is. And to make sure that we're maximizing the value of any and every setback, we make sure that we use metrics in our culture for everything that we do. So it's not a personality-driven decision, it's a metrics-driven decision. Is the answer, are you able to achieve what we set out to? Is it high enough? Sometimes our metrics are too low and we actually keep upping them at every stage of the program. Other times we make it harder and we add a different capability. But if we make a game-changing solution that fails, that's okay if we really understand what it is that we are going after. That's the thing about truly cutting-edge science on the cusp of discovery. We really can't know what's going to work until we try it. A lot of our work today, though, focuses on what this symposium is all about. How can we develop the tools and technology that allows us to seamlessly aggregate a ubiquitous sea of data and separate that information into our knowledge base of what is critical, relevant, and useful versus information that is none of those? Reliable intelligence requires analytical techniques that can handle massive amounts of data and deliver relevant, accurate information to decision makers with enough warning that actions can be taken to protect the security of our nation and its people. To do this research, IARPA is organized into two different offices, analysis and collection. The goal of analysis research is to maximize insights from the massive, disparate, unreliable, and dynamic data that are or could be available to us in a timely manner. This enduring issue is not getting any easier, as my friend Nancy will say. The volume, velocity, variety, and veracity of the data, or the 4 V's, okay, as she likes to, of information collected is continuously increasing and or changing. Moreover, analysis must link the data to possible outcomes. IARPA applies leading-edge AI and machine learning techniques to make this growing challenge tractable. The goal of collections research is to dramatically improve the value of collection data from all sources by developing new sensor and transmission technologies. New collection techniques and more precisely target the information decision makers need and means for collecting information for inaccessible or denied areas. For these new sources of collection are not without challenges. For example, remote sensors and cameras have become ubiquitous across the world and are a source of data that intelligence agencies did not have available to them a generation ago. Smart collection techniques are needed to collect the right data from these sources and pre-process it to provide useful information rapidly to analysts. Similarly, Internet of Things devices are a growing source of data that can be collected to learn intent. Developing these new sensors and detectors is a clever way to collect multimodal data to reveal what our adversaries are attempting to hide from us at the very core of our collection program. And it aims at increasing the value of that information. Today, I want to highlight a few of these programs to illustrate how we are envisioning a new digital ecosystem to advance the strategic advantage over our adversaries. I hope that they spark the imagination of you in the private sector and academia who can help us, because we need you to turn an idea into a proposal for these new programs we're embarking on. You can learn more about any of these programs on our website. And I'm only going to highlight a few, but we have a whole bunch of other ones that are coming out. We'll start between 10 and 12 new efforts this year. So we're really busy. We've already had 3 BAAs, broad agency announcements, closed this year. And so we're really trying to get new efforts going for the IC. First one I'll talk about is hiatus, and this is a broad agency announcement activity that is open right now. It is on human interpretable attribution of text using underlying structure. Using underlying structure, this opportunity, which is open now, okay, is a program where we're seeking to develop novel human usable AI systems for attributing authorship to and protecting author privacy through identification and leveraging explainable linguistics, okay, which is a problem for intelligence agencies. So the program is seeking to develop these novel capabilities, and we don't know what we're going to do yet because we're looking at what challenges are out there for you to bring in and your ideas against this. But successful technical approaches need to be scalable to a wide range of diverse topics. Another program that's going to have a BAA out in the next probably 2 to 3 weeks is called Haystack, which is, just as it implies, looking for a needle in a haystack, right? Hidden activity signal and trajectory anomaly characterization. It's an IARPA trait to come up with these really fancy names, guys. I'm just telling you. The best one that we have right now and has won an award is called Smarty Pants, just saying. And it's on advanced wearable capabilities. So, the Haystack just did a Proposers Day a couple of weeks ago, and all that information is on our website. And what they do in this program is developing capabilities that produce large-scale microsimulations so that you can figure out human movement and create AI reasoning engines capable of both identifying abnormal movement trajectories and generating normal ones, right? As we're moving through, how can you catch those things that are happening so that we can figure that out ahead of time and create early warning, right? So we're looking at activity detection, if you will, in that exploding volume of data movement, especially where you've got capabilities and you don't want to be seen. So how do you figure that out? One of the other programs we've got upcoming and also did a Proposers Day just last week is called Riva, so walk-through renderings from images of varying altitude. We want to enable what we in the CIA call SDRs, or surveillance detection routes. So think about it, right? Anywhere in the world without going out into the wild. So how can you figure out, they show it on TV all the time, guys, if we could do that, but we can't. Just telling you, and we also don't have the data. For where our agents and capabilities need to go, they're not the exotic places like Paris, right, where there's plenty of data and imagery, right? We're talking about places which are probably not the nicest places in the world, and how do we create that near real time so that we're able to send people into remote areas without really going there, right? So that you can figure out what it is you might need to do, and then you'd be able to go and do it. And so with Riva, we're aiming to develop software algorithm-based systems that can create those photorealistic, navigable site models using very limited amounts of imagery and data, and even no to very small amounts of metadata, okay? And so this is a game changer. Everybody knows that you need X, Y, and Z to do that collection. We're trying to do it without. And so how do you do that and turn it into something that's viable? So expanding that site modeling capabilities will be a game changer for, and significantly decrease the risk, to our personnel. In addition to those new and upcoming opportunities, we're in the midst of source selection for Agile. Okay, and Agile is our advanced graphical intelligence logical computing environment, right? All that data that we talk about, we have to think about doing compute differently, absolutely differently. This program aims to revolutionize high performance, high efficiency computing to help us keep pace and handle the huge and growing amounts of data that we ingest. We do it in a completely different way than we do it today. The PM envisions a new compute environment that will accommodate the ever-increasing demands of the IC, and you should see probably an announcement about who will be awarded, hope by the end of the month, maybe next month. So that's a game changer for the community, and it's really a different way of thinking about how we want to face the community program. It should come as no surprise to anyone in this audience that the IC cannot possibly hire enough human analysts to convert the huge volumes of data and information coming to us at actionable intelligence. IARPA's Better program aims to advance the information search and retrieval process for analysts. The Better program will enable analysts to extract the data that they need from the volumes of data that they receive, regardless of the domain from which it is stored or the language it was written in, and turn it into intelligence products. So think about this, being able to do a search in English and get your results in English, but querying capabilities in other languages. It's a game changer and a really important program. In this next phase, we're actually going to be doing 3 very hard languages: Chinese, Russian, and North Korean. Those are of slight interest to those of us in the IC. The so-called volume problem, though, is not just limited to speech and text data. We also need to worry about how we collect and analyze the huge volumes of imagery data that we bring in. The SMART program is designed to do just that, and it is one of the first programs that is allowing us to use the Amazon Web Services cloud as a collaboration environment for the performers on this program. It's a game changer for us in how they share data and how they enable the tools and the collaboration capabilities. And so using AI and ML, the systems under development in SMART, are going to go beyond object recognition in imagery and allow analysts to automatically detect and categorize activities observable in imagery. So looking at construction zones and things like that we aren't presently able to determine. So we really want to get the early insights of things of concern to the IC. And lastly, I want to highlight the Microelectronics for AI targeted seedling effort that we have going on. This was a topic-driven smaller research effort. It's only 2 years, targeted at really exploring revolutionary new ideas in microelectronics that will enable AI, with the anticipation of a large follow-on program. So these efforts, and there's a dozen of them right now that we're exploring, are really targeted at both hardware and software and algorithm architecture that can improve the performance of artificial intelligence and machine learning, packaged in highly efficient, edge-capable microelectronic devices. Additionally, we're seeking to cultivate new materials, processing and science, improving the performance, emphasizing compactness, minimal weight, and modest energy requirements. That's not an easy feat for AI and machine learning endowed capabilities and with microelectronics devices, but if we can give you a chip technology that is built in an entirely different way, think bio, think non-traditional, think automatic capability, real time that can change, that's a game changer, right? And so we're looking at what we can do to get us off the dependency on the foundries overseas, as well as the capabilities, and enable things that are near real time in what we're able to develop to enable edge compute capability and advanced sensors for the IC. All of these emerging programs are just samples of the innovative capabilities IARPA is developing. It's not easy work. We face challenges in our mission every day. Some of them come from the laws of physics or math or chemistry, which we're constantly trying to bend, if not break. But many of our challenges actually come from concern over adopting and adapting new technology. When the stakes are high and lives are on the line, there can be a real resistance to implementing new technologies in a relapse into old ways of doing business. We see it over and over. So that's why it's really important that we do that rigorous testing and evaluation to validate performance on on our performers R&D. You can tell me that it delivers. I'm going to test. I'm independently verifying with the government lab, our national lab, FFRDC. It's not somebody with skin in the game. It's somebody independent. And when I hand something over to my partner at NSA, my partner at NGA, my partner at CIA or NRO or FBI, I can guarantee you that it's going to work. And we can see that with facial recognition capability. The state-of-the-art the FBI uses today comes from our IARPA research programs and will be further pushed with our new Briar program, which is taking facial recognition capability from the Janus program and from others and saying, how do you do that from a distance and range? How do you make sure that you've got the ability to figure out exactly who that is and do that with high reliability? That's contingent upon AI and machine learning and good data and labeling. So that independent, rigorous T&E is really important and gives us that test and verify capability. With the threats from adversaries across the globe, we can't limit ourselves to doing things the way we always have. We have to be game changers and embrace new ways of doing business. In the intelligence business, we're required to push the envelope, to drive the state-of-the-art to new levels, and to solve hard problems, putting together pieces of seemingly unrelated parts, a jigsaw puzzle, if you will, to ensure technical excellence for our nation and deliver exquisite capabilities. Sometimes they're used only once, put away. It's a very different way of thinking about that, right? But important if you need to have the best to be able to do certain things that only we're going to do. As scientists and engineers, our challenge, in fact, is to provide an overwhelming, unfair technical advantage over our adversaries. The underlying mantra that drives all intelligence officers and is our relentless pursuit of truth. In the government, we can't do it alone. We have to forge strong partnerships with industry and academia. And in IARPA, we're really lucky because we're not focused on just domestic, and we encourage partnering all over the world. Some of our best quantum capability is coming from the Netherlands and overseas. Believe it or not, yes, the Netherlands, people don't necessarily think about it that way, but they've got a great group and we're able to tap into that. And so that partnering is really important as you bring in innovative capabilities. I'm not going to go to the bad 5 countries, just letting everybody know that. Those partnerships are really important, and you in the audience offer new opportunities for the IC to collaborate and bring your ideas forward to our R&D programs. In fact, you're a big part of our future. If you want to go and follow us on our website, our Twitter page, you can learn about all these open solicitations. And I encourage you actually to sign up to our proposers days that come out. You're welcome to participate and learn and partner. We have set those up over, the pandemic. If there's only one part of the thing that was good, it's forced the IC to do things differently. We actually use the open internet for these things. Oh my God, that never would have happened before. Telework never would have happened, right? We think about this differently. And so we at IARPA continued to push forward during this entire past 2.5 years running our programs because we could, and we continue to. And so you'll see that we're very busy. We do both virtual and in-person meetings now to the maximum extent possible. We really love the engagement with our colleagues, and so I'm very happy to take any questions that you might have. There's a change in venue here.
Great. Well, thank you very much for those remarks. I think we covered a lot of ground and you gave us some great insights. I've got some audience questions here that I'm going to field for you. If anyone has any other questions from the audience, please write them on an index card and hold them up, and our staff members will walk around and collect them from you. So the first question is, you mentioned research into leading-edge AI techniques. Mm-hmm. What more can you tell us about these and about the possible mission applications?
So we have a research and development mission, not an application mission, okay? But what we're doing is developing a new suite of tools. And we don't specifically go after AI and machine learning capabilities, we're actually looking at what the challenges that we're trying to solve. How do we give better capabilities to analysts to search data and give you an answer? How do we do better facial recognition capabilities? So one of the things that comes out of all of our programs is the great data, because for AI and machine learning, if garbage in is garbage out. And so if you don't train your data well, if you don't have well-labeled data, you will not get good models and capabilities that AI and machine learning can use. And so we make all those data sets available to our partners across the IC. We have spent a very, very large amount of money, I can't probably say what that is because I don't know, on making sure that we label data and have it to train these. And so I think that's one of the things that we do specifically. But we don't have any one program targeted at AI and machine learning.
All right, so the next question is talking about your comments on risk. Success requires some high-risk bets to work, but also those wins must transition into real operations and outcomes. What are the biggest challenges there?
So it's making sure that we understand what the goal, the end goal really is for operations, right? And none of those can be discussed here, okay? However, remember I mentioned our partnering early and often, and having those partners have a voice at the table. They're the ones that help shape the program and make sure that we're going after the right problem. If we can solve that right problem, and those partners don't say hello at the beginning and never come back, every 6 months we do a programmatic review of that, and they're always invited to those programmatic reviews. They're also invited to meeting with the partners. And so because of that close partnership with the consumers of the capabilities at the end of the day, we get good pull-through. And at the end of the program, they're the ones that are going to take it and operationalize it. So we don't do that operational piece. We just need to understand that. For example, on our LHO, which is our Little Horned Owl UAV program, for that program to be viable, we had to understand what noise threshold it was going against. And we had to be able to beat that on a Fawn curve, that's how you measure noise. And when you can do that, then you're going to get adoption.
Okay. So talking about some advanced research efforts, can you speak about any research efforts around quantum? Are there any applications within the IC that IARPA is focused on?
Quantum is still very early and nascent, and we've been involved with quantum since the beginning and stand-up of IARPA. The programs that we have ongoing right now is the Logic program, which is, okay, this is how early and nascent the science is. We want to demonstrate one logical qubit. One. All right, it hasn't been demonstrated yet. And so being able to do that and show that that can then translate into that capability is critically important. So we have been involved since the get-go, but it's early science capabilities. And one of the really cool things that happened during the pandemic is because everybody went home, and a lot of this work is done in cryo-cooled capabilities in labs. But because everybody was home, there was no background noise. And so they got some of the most exquisite measurements that they ever could have gotten as to what capabilities were going on because there was no background noise going on. And so that was pretty cool. And we have transitioned our QEO program over to DARPA, and they're taking it because the application turns out at the end of the day that it's more defense-oriented. And hint, another new program coming out later this year, it's called ELK, which is an extensible logical qubit, and that is in development right now as to giving next-generation capabilities for NSA.
Okay. Next question is, you mentioned most of IARPA's research is unclassified. What measures does IARPA put in place to prevent our adversaries from monitoring, collecting, or exploiting your research projects for their advantage?
Yeah. So I get to highlight one of the IC's best practices, which is called Research and Technology Protection. At the beginning of every program, that after your program is approved, the very next step is security, okay? And security has a very controlled risk framework where they evaluate where technology goes from unclassified to FOUO to confidential, secret, and all the way up into compartmented capabilities. And so with that rigor, we ensure that from the get-go, we know where the lines of classified versus unclassified are, and every 6 months, that's reviewed again. What's changed? What new capabilities are out there? Are people watching it? And when you're doing things that are unclassified and you know where the lines are, unclassified is unclassified, right? You want to control the things that are classified, which is where you're going to apply it and how you're going to use it, okay? But research is research, and you can't be afraid of where that line is.
So let me just ask a follow-up question on that, because I know in other fora at INSA, companies have expressed concern that before a developer brings technologies to the government, it's unclassified, but some of our adversaries are trying to steal that intellectual property even at that early stage. Is that anything that IARPA can do anything about or worries about?
So we worry about intellectual property quite a bit, and work with our performers to ensure that we have the proper protections in place and that we end up with government purpose rights. And you were right, technology into and of itself can be unclassified. Batteries are unclassified. What I put them in and where I put them to collect something, that's the classified part. And if they're stealing our intellectual property, they're not stealing how we have to use it, right? And so when you stay in the early stage of research and development, and then you turn it over to our IC partner, our IC partner often will put magic sauce on it that changes that and uses it in a different way. And so that's what we have to be mindful of.
Great. So now we have a related question, sort of from the other perspective. You mentioned as one example of technology the need to develop facial recognition technology that works at a distance. This is something that certain of our adversaries do very well. Our adversaries buy, borrow, and steal US technologies. Do we learn from theirs?
Yes. How's that for an answer? The answer is going to go down a slippery slope very quickly, but yes, we do, and we pay attention. We pay attention to what's going on out in the world, what's happening in the press, what's happening in research, who the performers are, where there's contributions, what ones people are going after and which ones we're not. And we make sure that when there's something that's coming up, that we bring it to the attention of security and so that a proper mitigation can be put in place.
Great. Addressing a question that Sue Gordon mentioned this morning in her opening keynote, what are you doing to improve and accelerate adoption of innovations, including overcoming the so-called valley of death and getting adoption at speed and scale?
So that's why, as I mentioned, so I was at IARPA before, and I remember in 2014 taking this really cool technology, I won't say what program it was, but taking this real cool technology into the FBI and making this brief, and it was great, and we were really excited about it. And the FBI said to us, oh, that's really cool, but we don't need it. Because if we want to do that, we can just go in with a warrant. And so that means you don't understand your customer, right? So that's when we changed our business model and make sure that we've got our partners at the table from the get-go, right? Because if we don't have that understanding of what they're going after, we're going to make those mistakes. And so we also work at facilitating transition with some seed funding and making sure that our partners are building that money and that plan to catch the capability into their budgets so that at the end of the day we don't have that valley of death where technology that we've invested in isn't planned for to be caught, to be taken to that next.
Okay. Since you mentioned batteries, that's a good example of a technology that's been around a long time and that where the application is particularly is the biggest area of interest. Minimizing size, weight, and power usage of technologies have always been critical as science and technology challenges. So how are those goals being addressed in 2022 with advanced technological research?
So unobtainium is not on the periodic table, just letting everybody know that. Battery geek, but when you look at the when you look at the periodic table, lithium is really high up on the left-hand side, which means it's very, very lightweight, okay? And so anything that's really, really lightweight, there's only one thing up there above it, and that's sodium. And so we in the field are looking at sodium capabilities, but sodium also may solve the problem for some applications, but then you have to worry about the other components in the system, right? So, but both of those have their own opportunities associated with them. You know, there's a reason when you get on an airplane, sorry, you're taking me down a rabbit hole, but there's a reason when you get on an airplane, they say, you know, don't check your smart bags, take the battery out, right? Because if those things catch on fire, you can't stop it. I know, I've done it, I've run all those experiments, I've blown many things up in my career, it's very fun. But as you go to smaller and smaller applications of power technologies, you're taking all the inert ingredients, all right? And as you take those out, you increase the risk associated with that to get more energy, to get more power, and you give up other things. You guys probably don't know this, but lithium-ion batteries used to last a whole lot longer than they do now, okay? But the reason that they don't last as long is because we took out a bunch of those inerts and we charge it to a higher voltage and we discharge it to a lower voltage because the consumer wants smaller, lighter weight. And so you can do that by tailoring what it is that you want to do. There's always something that you give up, and while we talk about advanced capabilities in that, you increase the risk, or you change the range, or you change some of that. It's all capable and doable, you know, but it depends upon how much you want to pay, right? Because batteries, I mean, they can be very, very expensive to give you that exquisite capability. It can be done, and we have advanced capabilities that do that.
Well, anything IARPA can do to extend the life of my iPhone battery without making me pay a lot more would be greatly appreciated.
How often are you leaving it charged? You know?
We have a question here. What can you tell us about IARPA's collaboration with small businesses?
So I can. Collaboration might be the wrong word. Funding I can speak to. We have had somewhere on the order of 2,700 independent performers over our career, and about 50% of those are academia, 25% small business, 25% large business. So we fund quite a bit of small businesses, and we do not do 8A set aside or set aside for small business. We do full and open competition, but we do have a good track record of including those because that's often where we get really non-traditional ideas from. And because of that unclassified nature, we can get performers that others wouldn't necessarily because we don't require you to have a clearance to participate.
So a related question, how do you effectively engage companies, including small businesses, that don't have a lot of experience working with the government, R&D and acquisition and potentially security processes?
So they generally don't need security processes for us. And that's how we do proposers days. We invite people to come in. Prior to the pandemic, we had conferences that we did a lot of attention at. And so it's getting out there, and we invite any company that wants to come and talk to us to come in, and we'll give you 30 minutes for sure. You know, but it's also paying attention to our website, our Twitter feed, because that's where you're going to see where the new advances and the programs are coming from.
Great. Here's a question that gets a little political. What capabilities and resources does IARPA need from Congress?
Oh, I can't answer that question. That would get me in trouble. I'm too smart for that. But thank you, who's ever asking that. We tend to be the good news story for Congress, so allowing them to continue us is a good thing. We highlight all of our programs. In fact, the microelectronics for AI was a plus-up, congressionally directed plus-up last year, and we're continuing that and making our own further advancements in that field.
Well, it does sound like IARPA is able to make effective use of the resources that it does get, and sort of in that quad chart that Sue Gordon mentioned this morning of doing easy or hard or important or not important, IARPA certainly does the work that's in the hard and very important category. So thank you very much for your insights, and thank everyone for your questions, and we appreciate you taking the time this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.